The skies above Galthus Point were not supposed to burn. Not like this. Not again. Commander Sarai Voss stood rigid on the bridge of the HSS Nightfall, staring through the armored viewport at the incoming swarm. Hundreds of glinting lights, each one a warship from a species that humanity had once foolishly considered allies. The Kelt Armada moved in perfect, synchronized silence. No comms chatter, no declarations of war, just a cold and coordinated glide into Earth's last defensive perimeter. But this wasn't Earth. Not yet. "Lieutenant, confirm again," she said, her voice steady despite the churning pit in her stomach. "They're broadcasting a null signal. No ID, no diplomacy headers, just a blank wave suppression, and I'm reading over 320 capital-class signatures." Sarai let that number settle over the command crew like a funeral shroud. The Nightfall was a single frigate, one of the older Apex-class ships, built during the Crimson expansion, refurbished after the Hadrex uprising, and barely holding together with black market parts and jury-rigged tech. It was never meant to face a single dreadnought, let alone an armada. But they had no choice. Not anymore. 3 weeks ago, humanity's central relay station at Vega collapsed in a singularity event. Officially, it was a freak cosmic occurrence. Unofficially, everyone knew the Kelt had weaponized gravitational shear. The moment the Vega Gate fell, Earth lost 2/3 of its outer defense grid and every long-range reinforcement route. The Confederation refused to believe the evidence, or chose to ignore it. So it fell to Sarai and the rogue outliers on the Nightfall to hold Galthus Point, or die trying. "Launch all drones," she said, turning to her weapons officer, Ensign Keir. "Full ECM bloom, and prime the coil arrays. We'll give them a reason to remember what it means to pick a fight with us." "But Commander, there's no backup, no fleet. We don't even have orbital artillery. That's suicide." She turned, fixing him with a stare that made her rank feel carved in obsidian. "No, Ensign, that's humanity. We fight when we should run. We burn when we should kneel. And when the universe expects our extinction, we ignite. Now, light them up." The bridge dimmed as the hull's outer panels unfolded like metallic petals, revealing banks of linked particle accelerators, magnetic rail lances, and the signature coil arrays that earned the Nightfall her name. Plasma capacitors whined, the grav core throbbed, and from the shadows of the ship's flanks 1,000 microdrones launched, forming a shifting nebula of synthetic fury. A Kelt destroyer surged ahead of the fleet, firing a trident-shaped spread of matter lances, each bolt an antimatter spear capable of slicing through the bow of a battlecruiser. Sarai didn't flinch. Bring the ventral shield to full, rotate the bow, and prepare to counterstrike. The ship lurched as the shield flared blinding blue, absorbing the first 2 lances. The third tore through the outer stabilizers, sending a groan through the deck. Sparks flew, smoke curled from the damaged console behind her. Still, she held her stance. "Return fire. Everything we have." Keir hesitated, then smiled grimly. "Aye, Commander." The Nightfall roared. The first volley from its twin coil arrays painted a stream of white-hot plasma across the void, splitting the destroyer's shields like paper. The second volley, timed with drone formation Echo 7, struck home, burrowing into the ship's spine and detonating its core. The destroyer went nova, a sun born of steel and betrayal. Cheers erupted on the bridge. Sarai didn't join them, because behind that destroyer another dozen ships advanced. The Armada was not surprised. It was not impressed. It was merely adjusting. Sarai turned back to the viewport, watching as the Kelt shifted their formation into a hunting grid. "Tactical report," she barked. "Reinforcements are still a week out. Signal's been sent, but there's no guarantee it made it through." "How long can we hold?" Keir frowned. 15 minutes, maybe less." She took a breath, the kind of breath that came before legends. "Then we show them what 15 minutes means to a human." She activated her command link. Across the ship, dozens of crew heard her voice. This is Commander Voss. They think they're going to break us. They think we'll fold. But they've forgotten who we are. We are fire and fury, born in the cradle of Earth, forged in every war this galaxy tried to bury us with. They want to erase us. Fine. We'll carve our epitaph into their halls." Outside, the skies began to glow, not with alien might, but with defiance. The Nightfall, alone and impossibly outgunned, surged forward. The Nightfall dove into the swarm like a spark into dry timber. Her hull screamed as inertial dampeners strained against velocity curves no frigate was ever meant to survive. Sarai didn't care. This wasn't about surviving anymore. It was about making them bleed, for every life lost at Vega, for every child vaporized in the colonies, for every lie the Celt whispered behind diplomatic smiles before driving the knife in humanity's back. Bridge to engineering. Vanthi, how much juice do we have left in the overburners? A rasp of static, followed by the engineer's rough voice. You're melting my spinal conduits, Sarai. We've got one more burn before the coils go solid. After that, we're flying on fumes and prayers. Good. Save it. I want to choose when we explode. Sarai's eyes swept over the tactical display. The Celt weren't reacting with panic. They were evolving, rapidly. 3 cruisers broke off from the main grid and began a flanking maneuver, circling like wolves. Their formation was precise, clinical. It reminded Sarai of something. No, someone. She clenched her jaw. Kier. That movement. Right quadrant. What does it look like to you? He squinted at the readout. Classic pincer, spiral 9 formation, but his brow furrowed. That's a human tactic. Old Earth Fleet doctrine. Exactly. They've studied us, or worse, they've downloaded us. Her voice lowered. Those bastards must have gotten hold of tactical archives from Vega. The implications chilled her more than the Celt weaponry. Those files weren't just battlefield maneuvers. They were full breakdowns of psychological warfare, reaction analytics, countermeasures, emergency protocols, everything that made humanity unpredictable, charted and filed like algorithms. The enemy knew how they fought, so she had to do something they would never expect. Route control to manual. I'm flying her in. Ma'am, that's... Kier froze, then swallowed. Yes, Commander. The bridge tilted slightly as Sarai stepped forward, her hands taking the twin helm sticks, each palm scanning for DNA lock. The ship accepted her, recognizing her neural imprint like a slumbering beast recognizing its master. Sarai closed her eyes. She let the sensors bleed into her mind. Pressure shifts, hull strain, particle densities. The Nightfall wasn't just a vessel. She was a blade, and Sarai was the hand that would wield it. With a sharp jerk, the ship spun on its axis, tucking under the belly of a Celt frigate so closely the Nightfall's shields left scorch marks on the enemy's hull. Pulse cannons fired point blank, vaporizing weapons nodes and igniting secondary ammo stores. The explosion rocked both ships, and for a moment, the Nightfall vanished into the fireball, only to burst from the other side like a phoenix trailing plasma feathers. Behind her, 2 of the drone swarms looped into self-destruct mode, ramming directly into the bow of the nearest Celt heavy cruiser. The impact wasn't enough to destroy it, but it stunned them. And in a fight this uneven, every second stolen was a victory. On the lower decks, the crew worked like souls condemned to eternal motion. Blood from minor concussions slicked the medbays. Sparks rained in engineering. Hands blistered on overheating consoles. But not one voice called for retreat. Because the voice of their commander, relentless, iron-willed Sarai Voss, echoed in their bones. In the command pit, Kier stared in disbelief as Sarai guided the ship through another near-suicidal maneuver, skimming along the outer edges of the Celt formation and dropping sonic mines as they passed. "They can't keep up," he muttered. "Their tracking systems are lagging by half a second." "Good," she growled, "because I'm about to do something even they won't believe." She hit the overburners. The Nightfall shrieked as the engine surged past Redline, launching the frigate straight through the center of the Kelt Armada like a comet of vengeance. Shields flared, armor peeled, structural warnings screamed, but they punched a hole in the enemy formation, scattering the Armada's cohesion. And then, silence. For 3 seconds, space was still. Fire drifted in slow spirals. Wreckage tumbled. Even the stars seemed to hold their breath. Then the Kelt flagship moved. A Leviathan, 10 times the Nightfall's size, dark as a forgotten moon, and bristling with energy signatures that hadn't existed in known science. It hadn't fired a shot. Until now. "Massive spike!" Kier yelled. "That thing's charging some kind of dimensional rupture cannon." Sarai's eyes narrowed. She recognized the tech, because they had stolen it from humanity's classified labs. "They have the Singularity Lance," she whispered. There was only one on record, built as a deterrent, locked away, buried in treaties, and now it pointed at her ship. "Prepare for final maneuver," she said, dead calm. "Commander?" She looked at them all, smoke-streaked, bloodied, terrified, and she smiled. "We're going inside." "You're going inside the flagship?" Kier's voice cracked like a snapped hull plate. "Commander, that thing's a fortress. We don't even have a breach team." "We don't need one," Sarai interrupted. Her hands tightened on the controls. "We just need an opening. One hull breach, one vector, one spark." The Nightfall circled hard, engines screaming, weaving through fields of superheated debris and drifting Kelt wreckage. The Singularity Lance mounted on the enemy flagship was still charging, energy readings spiking off every chart they had. Time was bleeding out. "Scan for docking scars, armor seams, repair ports, anything we can ram," she ordered. "Why not just destroy it?" asked Vanthe over the intercom, his voice full of static and desperation. "We've got one warhead left. Drop it in and run like hell." "Because destroying it isn't enough," Sarai replied. "They didn't build that cannon just to wipe us out. They're going to use it again, on Earth, on everything. We don't just blow up the gun, we end the hand that pulls the trigger." Silence answered her. And then, "Aye, Commander." Kier called up a schematic, extrapolated from visual scans and thermal mapping. There, rear quadrant, just under the core cooling tower. It's a massive port, probably for reactor ventilation. Not shielded, but it's a tight fit. "How tight?" He didn't answer. That was answer enough. "Plot the course. Brace for hull rupture." The Nightfall banked on thruster-only precision, her armor charred and bleeding gas from 6 separate breaches. One engine was half dead. The grav core ran uneven, like a heart with a skipped beat. Her AI had stopped issuing casualty estimates. The numbers had lost meaning. Still, the crew held. Still, she flew. Sarai watched the port grow in the viewport. A dark chasm on the side of the flagship, exhaling waves of heat and radiation. It wasn't a docking bay. It was an open wound in the ship's armor, not meant for visitors but for purging excess heat from the primary reactor. Suicide to enter. Exactly what she needed. "On my mark," she said. "Forward shields full. Impact velocity locked. I'll take her in manually." Kier turned to her. "Commander, it's been an honor." Sarai glanced at him and nodded once. "Not yet. Wait till the ending's worth remembering." The countdown blinked to 0. She hit the thrusters, hard. The Nightfall screamed into the vent port, scraping hull on superstructure, sparks and debris trailing like the tail of a dying meteor. Inside the flagship, alarms exploded. Motion sensors, pressure differentials, proximity alerts. Too late. Too slow. Too human. The Nightfall slammed to a stop deep within the flagship's cooling shaft. Engines crushed, decks warping. Emergency clamps fired, anchoring the ship against the gravity shear. "We're in," Kier whispered. "Seal the bridge. Atmospheric lock." Sarai unclipped from the chair, her armor auto-sealing over her flight suit. "Commander," Kier said, standing, "you can't be serious." "I am," she said, "and you're in charge now." His mouth opened, but she was already walking, boots echoing through the broken ship. The boarding tube extended from the belly of the Nightfall, connecting with the inner passage of the Kelt flagship. The air on the other side was thin and metallic, reeking of ozone and scorched metal. Sarai stepped through without hesitation, rifle in hand, hood flaring with hostile readings. She was inside the belly of the beast, a ship not just massive, but living in design. The walls pulsed faintly with energy. Circuits flowed like veins. Somewhere in the distance, a low thrum vibrated the floor, the heartbeat of the reactor core. A patrol of Kelt emerged around a corner, spindly, tall, armored in dark silver. Their eyes glowed faintly with pulsed light, a eye-enhanced vision. Not soldiers, hybrids, synth brains in organic armor, faster than any human, but not faster than Sarai Voss. She ducked under the first plasma bolt, rolled into cover, then fired a single EMP spike into the wall conduit behind them. The resulting pulse lit the hallway like a sun flare, frying every suit in the patrol. They dropped, twitching, steaming. She moved before the smoke cleared. Time was measured now in heartbeats, not minutes. The reactor lay beneath the central spine of the ship, 2 decks down. But between her and the core stood layers of security, walls of alien alloy, and systems tuned to eliminate anything not in the Kelt DNA chain. She smiled grimly. Good thing she wasn't entirely human anymore. From the hidden slot in her wrist gauntlet, Sarai pulled a small, jagged chip, a fragment of Project Thorn, the AI adaptive interface developed in the dying days of the Hadrex War. Illegal, unstable, capable of rewriting enemy code on the fly, if it didn't melt your nervous system first. She jabbed it into her palm. Pain screamed through her veins like molten metal. Her HUD flickered, her heartbeat doubled, then stabilized. The walls changed. Suddenly, access lines lit up on her visor. Heat signatures revealed weak points in the ship's structure. Code shimmered on the edges of her vision like alien glyphs just beyond comprehension. She could see the machine's thoughts. And now, she was going to kill them. With each step, she advanced through the beast, rifle in one hand, override codes scrolling across her HUD in the other. Behind her, the Nightfall sat embedded like a dagger in the Titan's spine. Ahead, the core. And beyond that, the goddamn Singularity Lance. She was going to shut it down from the inside, or die inside this monster and take it with her. The deeper Sarai went, the less the ship resembled technology, and more it resembled something grown. The walls weren't metal anymore, not exactly. They pulsed faintly underfoot, like vascular tissue, lined with conduits that throbbed to a rhythm suspiciously similar to a heartbeat. It was quiet. Too quiet. Not a single Kelt patrol had confronted her since the override spike had synchronized with the ship's native systems. Instead, the corridors bent subtly away from her path, as if the ship itself was guiding her down into its belly, or luring her. Her HUD flashed. Proximity alert. Core, chamber, 212 meters below. She descended the last shaft by rappel, feet bouncing lightly against curved surfaces that hummed with static. Below her, a great pit opened, a vast chamber, half filled with mist and refracted light from energy fields far beyond human engineering. She dropped into it, boots hitting the deck with a solid thud. The room was cathedral-like, a chamber so massive it hurt the brain to comprehend. A vertical spire of light bisected it from ceiling to floor, the Singularity Lance's primary charge core. It didn't just pulse with power. It howled, subsonic waves pressing against her skull like whispers behind her thoughts. She who walks within. She spun, rifle raised, nothing there, just the empty chamber. But the words had not come through her ears. They had echoed inside her mind. Her AI interface flickered. The override chip sizzled against her nerves. Something, someone, was talking through the system. She took a step forward and the light in the room dimmed, focused, narrowed. She could see now that the central lance was encased in massive rings, gravitational stabilizers designed to contain the singularity energy. But beneath those rings floated something else, a cocoon, number A sarcophagus, roughly humanoid, suspended in energy, sleeved in tech. She scanned it. Unknown life form. Detected species. Non-Celt energy signature, matching human biosignal patterns. ID code classified. Thorn protocol active. What the hell? She took another step. The voice returned. Child of flesh. We are the first. A tremor passed through the floor, not from an explosion, from a pulse, like a giant exhaling. The sarcophagus shuddered. She scanned it again. The energy wasn't just stabilizing it, it was containing it. The Singularity Lance wasn't just a weapon. It was a prison. "Kier," she whispered into the comms, "you're not going to believe this. The Celt didn't build this ship." The static on the line was thick, but she caught pieces. "Repeat, Sarai. We're under attack. Drones reactivating. Internal breach." She tapped the channel again. "Kier, hold the line. I found something under the core. Something older than the Celt. Maybe older than Earth." The voice inside her mind returned. "We slept. Until they awoke us. Until they used us." Suddenly, it clicked. The Celt hadn't developed this technology. They had found it, dug it up like some cursed artifact, and instead of sealing it away, they had carved it into a weapon. A god-bound system wrapped around a dormant titan. And now it was waking up. Energy flared across the containment field. The sarcophagus twitched, then opened, splitting along seamless lines. Something inside moved. She raised her rifle, heart pounding. From the cocoon, a figure stepped out. 7 feet tall, armored but not in metal, in something that flowed like molten stone, etched with circuitry that pulsed like neurons. A helmet hid its face. It looked almost human. It looked at her, and spoke aloud, its voice layered with 100 echoes. "You are the one they call Sarai Voss, blood of Terra. You wear the mind spear of Thorn." Sarai didn't lower her weapon. "You're supposed to be dead." "I was, before the Celt tore open the gate between worlds." She felt her fingers go cold. "What are you?" The being stepped closer. The energy around it shifted like gravity bending to its will. "I was a sentinel, built by your ancestors in the age before time. One of the titans who watched the stars when Earth was still a myth. We were guardians, then prisoners. Now," it gestured to the weapon core, "a trigger." She swallowed. "You're the weapon. You are the Singularity Lance." "No," it said. "I am the failsafe. They think they can fire me, but when they do, I do not destroy a fleet. I erase civilizations. And you're just going to let that happen? I was made not to choose. But you, Sarai Voss, you carry the Thorn Code. You can decide." The floor shuddered. Above, alarms screamed. Celt forces were breaching the nightfall. Her crew was dying. She had seconds. "What happens if I release you?" she asked. "Everything changes. What happens if I destroy you? You may save your crew, your world, for now." The light intensified. The choice was hers. Activate the failsafe. Unleash a power humanity buried for a reason, or shut it down, save her ship, and risk the Celt using it again. And in the back of her mind, the override spike whispered, "Choose, child of fire. Choose who burns." Sarai Voss took one breath and reached out toward the console. Sarai's gloved fingers hovered over the console. The control panel wasn't mechanical. It was responsive, alive. Lights pulsed beneath the surface like veins reacting to her heartbeat. The Sentinel, the being born from ancient human design and molded into a weapon prison, watched her without moving. Not a threat, not an ally. A mirror, waiting. "Will you obey me?" she asked. "No, it said simply, "but I will remember your choice." Behind her, the reactor core pulsed harder. Energy was rising exponentially. If the Kelt reached full charge and fired this lance, there would be nothing left of Earth, the colonies, or even the stars caught in its path. Her jaw tightened. She stabbed her fingers into the interface. The system lit up, golden and red. Command code accepted, Thorn override. Recognized lance status. Reconfiguring the Sentinel's chest glowed with a sigil. A circle split by a burning line. The armor cracked open, revealing something underneath that wasn't machine or flesh. Pattern. The very code of physics reassembled. "I'm not letting the Kelt pull this trigger," Sarai said. The Sentinel nodded once. "Then I will." He stepped into the core, dissolving into it like embers caught in solar wind. As he vanished, the walls of the chamber began to shift, screaming, collapsing, reforming. Outside, space shattered. From the bridge of the Nightfall, Kier watched in awe as the flagship's central spine began to glow, not with destructive charge but with blooming fractal patterns of golden fire. The enemy fleet, sensing the change, pulled back in confusion. But it was too late. The lance fired. Not outward, inward. The weapon turned on its own ship, collapsing its impossible tech around a singularity of purpose. Light bent, matter cried, and in a brilliant, silent implosion, the Kelt flagship folded in on itself, dragging two nearby cruisers into the collapsing void. From the center of the blast, one thing remained: a signal. Kier's eyes widened. "Commander!" Static crackled, then a voice, hoarse, strained, hers. "Nightfall, do you copy?" He laughed aloud. "Sarai, you crazy, perfect bastard, are you?" "Alive," she coughed. "Barely. But listen, that Sentinel didn't die. He uploaded to where?" "To me." A pause. "Wait, what?" "He's in the override spike, in my neural feed. We're sharing a brain now, Kier. It's complicated." Before he could respond, alarms rang again. "Kelt reinforcements warping in," shouted a crew member. Sarai's voice came back, stronger now. "Let them come." Above the debris field, the Nightfall rose from the wreckage. Its hull was scorched, cracked, but burning with strange new circuitry, patterns that pulsed in sync with Sarai's heartbeat. She wasn't just piloting the ship anymore. She was the ship, and humanity's enemies had no idea what was coming. The Nightfall had changed. Where once its hull was a battered composite of retrofitted armor and war-torn patches, it now shimmered with shifting sigils, circuits that flowed like liquid light across its surface. The Kelt fleet, positioned around the ruins of their fallen flagship, had paused. Not from mercy, from fear, because the ship that emerged from the wreckage didn't move like a frigate. It glided, silent, fluid, alive, a thing reawakened. On the bridge, Kier stood slack-jawed, watching the new interface bloom across the screens. The control panels no longer obeyed touch. They responded to thought. His thoughts. Her thoughts. "Sarai," he whispered into the comm. "What did you do?" Her voice came back, but it was deeper now, dual-layered, as though someone else spoke beneath her words. "I didn't do this alone. The Sentinel, the AI, it's merged with me. The override spike made it possible. I'm still here, but I'm more than just me now." She appeared on the central display, not as herself, but as a spectral avatar. Armored, glowing, with eyes like starlight and a voice that resonated in the walls. "I gave it a choice," she said. "It chose us." Around the Nightfall, the remaining Kelt ships began to move. Slowly at first, then accelerating into combat formation. A full spearhead, destroyers, interceptors, carriers, enough to overwhelm even their upgraded ship. "We've got inbound," Kier muttered, checking readings. "Too many to count. They're committing to full war." "Let them," Sarai said. She raised her arm, and the Nightfall responded. From the now living hull, beams of golden energy erupted, carving through space like blades. Drone swarms reformed mid-flight, patterns shifting, acting with impossible coordination. They weren't just machines now. They were limbs, extensions of Sarai's hybrid mind. The first wave of Kelt ships evaporated on impact. Kyr's hands hovered uselessly over the console. "Are we even flying this ship anymore?" "You're still my crew," Sarai said, "but the ship listens to me now, and the Sentinel. It remembers every battle your ancestors fought and every weapon the galaxy buried." A Kelt dreadnought fired its spinal cannon. The beam should have torn the Nightfall in half. Instead, the energy curved, bent by an invisible distortion field that hadn't existed an hour ago, and redirected back into the dreadnought's bridge. It detonated in a silent sphere of white fire. "What is this tech?" Kyr whispered. "No one's ever built anything like this." "They didn't," Sarai said. "We did. Long ago, before the collapse. The Titans were made to guard humanity from the things we feared, the things we forgot. The Kelt, unearthed one, tried to turn it into a weapon. And now we've got it back." "Not it," she corrected. "Him. And he's seen what's coming." Kyr frowned. "You mean the war?" "No," Sarai said. "The war is a symptom. Something worse is waking out there, in the dark between galaxies. That's why the Kelt rushed to strike. They weren't expanding. They were running." A silence fell across the bridge. "And now?" Kyr finally asked. "Now," she said, "we take the fight to them. We break their Armada, and then we break the lies they built their empire on." Outside the viewport, the Nightfall turned toward the heart of the Kelt fleet, and Sarai Voss, now something more than human, more than Titan, spoke one last command. "Target the Kelt command ship. Full charge." The stars reflected in her eyes. "Let them see what we've become." The Kelt command ship was called Vorkaz Ith, or, in their tongue, the Burning Throne. A mobile palace and war citadel, it had ruled over entire planetary systems, executed rebel sons, and subjugated millions. It had never known fear, until now. The Nightfall broke through the Kelt vanguard like a scalpel through silk. Every defense protocol they had, formation cycling, predictive warp foils, polarity shields, failed. The ship no longer fought like a vessel. It hunted like a mind unleashed. Sarai felt every motion through her bones. The Sentinel AI, older than stars encoded into her nervous system, didn't need to speak. It shared intent, and she became its will. "They're collapsing formation," Kyr shouted. "We're 20 clicks from the throne ship." "They're afraid," she said, eyes burning. "And they should be." The Nightfall's bow split open, not physically but in folded dimensions, impossible to observe directly. A war spear of compressed particle time surged from its core, too fast to track. The Kelt cruiser ahead of them didn't explode. It ceased. Not debris, not flame, just erased. Vorkazith launched its defenses, Guardian drones in the tens of thousands, magnetic pulse mines, and quantum distortion traps. It didn't matter. Every shot the enemy fired curved away, swallowed by a distortion field that hummed with Sarai's pulse. The Nightfall shifted between dimensional thresholds, phasing in and out of visible space like a ghost made of fire and fury. Then they were upon it. The command ship loomed before them, 5 kilometers of alloy and arrogance. But Sarai wasn't here to duel. She was here to end them. "Target their throne room reactor," she commanded. "Penetration depth too great," Kyr replied. "Unless—" She finished it for him. "We breach the quantum layer." He looked at her. "That'll kill you." "Maybe, maybe not." She reached forward and touched the control altar, the new interface between her body and the ship, and she pushed. A hum filled the ship. The deck plates vibrated. Time bent. A singularity charge, laced with ancient Sentinel code, lanced from the Nightfall's hull and pierced the Kelt command ship like a needle into a nerve cluster. Inside Vorkazith, the throne room vaporized. Not burned, not torn, just unwritten. The chain of command collapsed. Systems went dark. The fleet's coordination shattered. The throne had burned, and with it, the illusion of Celt supremacy. Silence reigned for a long, impossible moment. Then the Celt fleet began to flee. Sarai slumped against the altar, breath shallow. Her skin glowed faintly, blood vessels lit from within by energies no human body should contain. Her mind was intact. Barely. The sentinel whispered to her, stabilizing her thoughts. "You still with us?" Kier asked softly. She opened her eyes. "Yeah," she rasped. "But we're not done." He blinked. "We just decapitated their empire. You destroyed the throne, Sarai." She looked out at the scattering remnants of the Armada. Her eyes narrowed. "Number Y broke their symbol," she said, "but something made them run before we ever got here. Something older." A flicker of something stirred in the far distance. A dark shape. No signals, no engine signature. Just watching. The sentinel whispered, "It wakes." Space had never felt this silent. Not even after a battle. Not after the screams faded and the wreckage cooled. This silence was older, deeper. The kind of silence that came before a thing spoke, or woke up. The nightfall hovered in the void where the Celt throne fleet had been shattered. Debris orbited slowly, burning chunks of once invincible warships, drifting like forgotten promises. But Sarai Voss didn't look at the ruins. She looked beyond them, at the shape emerging from the dark. No hull, no engines, no light. It wasn't a ship, it was a shadow with mass. "What the hell is that?" Kier whispered from the bridge. The sentinel answered in her mind. "It is the first flame." Sarai spoke aloud. "I thought you were the first." "I was a spark. That is the match." The object moved without moving. It wasn't approaching, yet it was closer with every second. Not by distance, but by relevance. It pressed into reality, warping causality, making sensors blink and scream as data folded in on itself. And then it spoke, not in sound, in memory. Sarai flinched. She saw Earth long before cities, stars being seeded, titans walking through flame, and at their center, this thing, the prime architect, the secret humanity buried, and the Celt accidentally awoke. It wasn't a weapon, it was a test. "You have broken the crown," the voice said, not to her ears, not through comms, but within her. "You have lit the forge. Do you know why?" Sarai stood tall on the bridge, even as her nose bled from the pressure of the presence. "I didn't come to pass your test," she said. "I came to end a war." "And what is war, if not the shape of your kind's ascent?" Her teeth clenched. "We didn't ascend through war. We survived in spite of it." Incorrect. War is truth. War is selection. The strong will carry the fire. Kier turned pale. "Sarai, what is it saying?" She didn't look at him. Her eyes were locked on the impossible shape. It's saying we're not the final form, that all of this, everything we've done, was to prove something. Prove what? That we're worthy of being the next flame. A long silence stretched. Then Sarai said, softly but clearly, "I don't accept that." The sentinel stirred in her mind. "You would reject the gift? The inheritance of the void?" "I'd rather light our own fire than take one handed down by something that thinks we're just matches in its cosmic test." She reached for the altar again. The nightfall responded. Every system, every particle of rewritten alloy, every drone, every fragment of inherited Titan code began to charge. The ship became a star again, but this time not to destroy, to define. "Sarai," Kier said, "what are you doing?" "Finishing it," she replied. "This thing, it's looking for another iteration of itself. I say we give it something it's never seen." She activated the forge pulse, not a weapon, but a signal. A ripple of fire and thought, a new code, human, hybrid, chosen. The shape shuddered, and slowly, impossibly, it retreated. Not defeated, but acknowledging. You choose your own fire then. So be it. The flame is yours. And it vanished, leaving silence behind. Real silence. On the bridge, Kier let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Is it over? Sarai sat down slowly, the lights of the ship dimming to normal. No, she said. It's just beginning. But this time